galactic travelers. My name is Corey, and
Hello, I am Robert. As you can see, I have a face this time that actually moves. I'm a real person. I have a webcam.
maybe.
So maybe. Sure.
And this
as you can
is
see- oh yes, this is the I've got a bad feeling about this podcast. Cue intro.
Q intro.
I am not in my usual spot, as you can see. I'm in a hotel room. I'm on the road.
I'm on the run. He's on the run.
I'm on the run. I'm hiding. But yeah. Bro, how you doing?
I'm doing good. It's late here, but I finally got my Christmas stuff taken away, put away.
That's true. We had the Christmas tree last time.
It was literally like mid-January before we finally took it down. Because Emma went on a cruise. And then and then I was like, I don't want to take him down by myself. So, but yeah, how are you?
Oh, tired, but recovering from COVID. I got COVID, so if you hear me coughing, that's why.
Yeah, sad.
Got the Rona, but the first time I got it in 2.5 years, so I call it a win. But it is what it is.
You're not like, you're not like keeled over a week later,
No, you should have seen me last week. Oh man.
No.
I lost my smell. But I didn't realize I lost my smell until like 4 days later. So I was like, locked in my room.
Mm-hmm.
And Faith was at work. And so I was like, I'll just feed the dogs. We had some leftover wet food from vacation because they're picky on vacation. So I cracked open the wet dog food. And as I was mixing it, I was like, I don't smell anything. That's all. This stuff is really strong.
Yeah.
Sure enough, I was like, in my face, and I was like, I don't smell.
Which is a good thing when you're dealing with wet dog food, but not a great thing when you have COVID.
Yeah.
But it happens. So,
but it do happen.
Today, we're jumping back in to our boy THRAWN.
Chapter 6 through 10.
Chapter 6. So where we left off, THRAWN had just got beat up, and he has now decided, after being beat up, is the good, best, perfect time to go talk to Dean Lark.
Yep.
So that's where we're going to go.
Chapter 6, like Corey said, they just got beat up. THRAWN was like, now's the time to go. Let's talk. So we start off with Commandant and Dean Lark. They're in his office. Homeboy just woke up. He's been dealing with a lot of crap. He has to manage the situation now, which puts him in an awkward position because everybody at the Royal Academy is loaded with political power.
Or their family is loaded.
That's true. Their family's loaded. What's his name? Orbar has connections to the senator of Coruscant, so, kind of a big deal. And, Dean Lark's like, well, crap, we're going to have to punish these kids. It's going to be a big deal. It's going to be in the news. It's going to cause this.
Basically might mean that their parents might stop donating, is what that means.
Yeah. And then, as you kind of go through it, THRAWN has a different idea for punishment. He says, well, I don't want to press charges. I don't want to court-martial these kids. And if you do, I'm not going to testify against them. And Dean Lark's off. He's like, what? Well, then what do you propose? And THRAWN, being the tactician he is like, I want these students sent away to Sky Strike Academy, which is like the elite pilot school of the Empire. And he said, because I do think they'll be very good pilots. And Dean Lark's like, how how is this a punishment? You know, like,
Right.
he's like, well, we're not going to tell the other two who set up the attack what happened to these
Basically,
people.
we're not going to tell him what happened to his friend. He's just going to be gone one day.
And he wanted to make it so that they had just enough time to tell, like, the people who were getting transferred had just enough time to tell the attackers, like, the architects of the attack, like, we're leaving Coruscant, we don't know where, and then boom, gone. So that these kids, like, you know, just live in fear about what's going to happen next.
Right. For like the next like couple of years until they finally can relax and be like, oh, nothing's going to happen to us.
Yeah. So D-Mark is like, I can get behind this because he doesn't have to deal with the families.
Mm-hmm.
And two, you know, it solves his problem of these kids beating up Thrawn, right? Or basically space racism, which is what it is.
Right. And he didn't have to deal with the Emperor.
Yes.
Because if it gets back to the Emperor that Thrawn is being bullied, that's going to look bad on him. But if he punishes these, you know, elitist kids, he's going to get flack from their parents. So this is more of a win-win for everybody.
One little detail that I want to note before we move on to the chapter is that there's a small section where Thrawn is talking about how the comlinks don't have an emergency button. Like, why don't these have an emergency button? All the Chiss comms do, you know. And then he says, "Can an emergency button be fastened into my insignia?" And Eli's like,
I
"Well,
forgot about this.
I mean, theoretically, probably, but whatever." And just like doesn't get mentioned again. But just file that away.
Right.
It's a little important in detail. But so that happened.
Part 1 of chapter 6.
Later on in the chapter, we get another cut to Arinda Price, who is now fully involved in the Coruscant daily life. You know, she is working under Senator Renking as a citizen's assistance person. And, you know, she's really good at her job. She's helping all these people. You know, she's causing enough of a stink to get noticed by people. So much so that Senator Renking's like, hey, I don't like you being associated with pissing people off and working in my office. So here's a promotion to a different office that's not associated. But I mean, this was all kind of her plan. She wanted to become the boss of her own office, closer to the Federal Square, which is like the center of
Coruscant, of the galaxy, really.
Yeah. So that's it's just like a quick little update on Arinda.
Yeah.
So she went from working under Renking directly to now kind of still working for him, but not directly.
Yeah, his name's not associated anymore, which is the big thing. He likes her stirring the pot, but he doesn't want to be associated with it because he doesn't want his colleagues mad at him.
Exactly.
So he's like, I'm going to make it to where you can still stir the pot, which is good for me, but you're not associated with me. So it's a win-win.
And then part 3 of chapter 6, we shoot back over to Eli and Thrawn, and they graduated.
Graduation day. Yay.
They made it through the Royal Academy. Royal Imperial, should I say. And we get a brief little scene of Eli's parents. They come from, I forgot what planet he's from, but they feel very out of place in Coruscant, you know, the center of the galaxy.
They're from wild space.
Wild space. And, you know, they're kind of like disappointed, I would say, that he is on the career track he is because he's associated with Thrawn. You know, they're concerned about all that stuff.
They're concerned about him not getting what he was going to do. Like they still are under the impression that he's going to end up somewhere out of harm's way and like more on the career path of what he originally started. And he's thinking that too.
Yeah. Yeah, he wants to do the logistics and shipping, all that kind of stuff. So Thrawn walks up, meets his parents. The dad is like super awkward, super uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because
Literally, he's like crap. Like whenever
Yeah.
Thrawn makes it there before they can call their ship, and I'm just like, bro, dude, like calm
Cool.
down.
I mean, and like the mom is just like, are the stories true? Because they have all those myths about,
Right.
the Chiss, and she's like freaked out about it.
Yeah, which
But
is at least she's asking.
yeah,
The
so we
dad
see
though,
that
the entire time is just like, I don't want anything to do with you.
the dad is like, I want to peace out. So
Yeah.
eventually they do leave. They head off, and then we kind of see Thrawn and Eli waiting to get their orders since they are graduates. And Eli's thinking, okay, I am done. I'm going to go my own way. Thrawn's going to go his own way.
See you later,
Life's
buddy.
going to be, although we know that's not going to happen. And we find out that they're both assigned to the same ship, the Blood Crow, which is just some light cruiser that is going to be doing some patrolling in the Outer Rim, I think.
Yeah, I think Thrawn gets technically assigned to be the weapon,
Oh yeah, like
senior
second weapon
weapon.
officer,
Yeah.
something like that. And Eli is his aide, which is very
Taboo.
humiliating for him, I
It's
think.
also very taboo for someone of Thrawn's level to have an aide. Like that's something that the captain gets, not the weapons person.
Yeah. And then one thing that's kind of funny to end the chapter out is, he's like, Eli says, when you're an admiral, we'll see what you can do, in terms of promoting him.
Mm-hmm.
And Thrawn says, I understand very well. I shall strive to achieve that rank as quickly as possible.
He said, challenge accepted.
Eli's like, he's not kidding. I can see it in his face. He is
Right.
dead serious.
So either he's going to succeed or he's going to fail miserably and probably drag Eli down with him.
Yeah.
That's
So
what
chapter
Eli's
6.
thinking.
Yeah.
It was a big chapter compared to the rest of them. We had 3 parts.
A lot happened. And I think it's one of the first ones we saw multiple stories in one chapter.
Yeah.
Like a jump from Thrawn and Eli to Arinda, back to Thrawn and Eli.
Well, I feel like the first part is Thrawn, the second part is Arinda, and the third part is more Eli. Like, this is the first chapter with all of them.
With, like, Thrawn being the first person, he has those little, like, italicized blocks where he's, like, reading people's facial heat and everything.
Right.
That's pretty cool.
But yeah, this is a good chapter. A lot has happened. Everybody's moving on up in the world.
Yep.
And then we dive into chapter 7. We've got Thrawn aboard the Blood Crow. They have a new captain that just showed up, that just got assigned. Let me pull up her name, because I don't remember it off the top of my head. Yeah, it was a long chapter. So many pages. There we go. Captain Rosie is the new captain. It's a female captain, and she's like a new captain overall. Like, she hasn't been a captain for very long, apparently. And so we get a lot of that. And then we get her, the biggest crux of this chapter is her calling Thrawn into his little storage area and calling him out for being a hoarder. Basically, he has a pile of junk, which is mostly made up of buzz droids, the little dudes from episode 3.
Clone Wars era
Clone
junk.
Wars shout out.
hyperdrive ring. He also had
and Thrawn and her have like a debate about why he should keep them, and then the like first lieutenant or like the first mate dude gets involved, and he's like, they're worth a lot of money because they're first edition basically. So his dude's like, yo, these are first edition holographic buzz droids. They're worth a lot of money. And she's like, okay, get them once they're functional. I'm taking them, and I'm gonna make money off of them. She doesn't know that they're already operational. Thrawn has them up and running, but nobody needs to tell her that. And the dude, the first mate guy knew that too, but nobody told her. So it's like they're all just like pulling the wool over her eyes. But then they get a distress call from, oh gosh, what's the name of it?
Like the Dromedar or something like that. Yeah, yes. Dromedar.
Not the really. Technical. Oh my god.
Look at page 105.
105?
Maybe my book's
bigger. Yeah, your book's bigger, dude. Calm down. Nope, that's signal. Oh well. So they get a distress call from a ship, right? And the ship is carrying Tabana gas, which is muy valuable. And so they have to go onto the ship to get the gas because it's been locked down because the ship, something happened to it. They get on the ship. It's like Thrawn, Eli, and then like 3 other people, like an engineer, a tech person, and whatever. They're going to go investigate and see what's going on, see if there's anybody on the ship anymore. They get to the ship. It's real spooky. There's nobody on it. They start to like get everything working, and then a random character appears named Signy, and he's kind of like dopey. And he's like, oh yeah, the ship was taken over and they took the crew, and don't go in that room, it'll burn your face off. Sorry, I should have told you about that earlier. And like all this other stuff. Like very dopey and very suspicious. But
you know what this makes me think of now that I think about it? Homeboy was just playing Among Us.
Oh my god, yeah, this is literally Among Us. They're like in a ship in space.
He vented up, just like popped up.
He did. He popped out. He vented. He's just like, oop. You didn't see that, right? The lights were off, right?
He's the imposter.
That's funny. Yeah, it's pretty much Among Us. And so we end with Thrawn telling Eli to call back to Captain Rossi to say that he basically wants to take the entire ship on board the Blood Crow to investigate further. Which seems dumb.
Yeah.
Because it's like the Tabana gas is like super volatile and could blow them all up. So that's how we end the chapter. It's just like Thrawn like, yeah, let her know. We're bringing the whole ship back. So
and then
chapter 7. Nothing really happens in chapter 7 except for they play Among Us in space.
It's like setting up the next little arc that we're going to go on.
Yes.
Chapter 8 starts, and we get a good glimpse at Rossi just being like, what are you doing? What are you thinking? Why do you want to do this?
I'm not doing it.
She is livid.
Yeah.
She's like, that is the dumbest idea I have ever heard. And then Eli just has to take the brunt of it, right? Because Thrawn told Eli to call her. Thrawn wasn't going to call her.
Eli's the one that had to FaceTime her.
Yeah. And then Eli kind of used a little bit of Thrawn's manipulation tactics.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, what if we just had a couple people? What if just Thrawn and I stayed? Because he knew that she would do anything to have Thrawn blow himself up.
Right.
She was like, I mean, if he wants to take that risk.
Yeah, she's fine with that.
So Thrawn and Eli are like, hey, we will stay on this ship by ourselves. And she said, fine, you can have volunteers if you can find them. And sure enough, the 3 people on the ship are like, sign me up, coach. So the main ship, the Blood Crow, gets a distress signal, right? And they like zoom off to go help.
Yeah, they're like, we gotta go. Bye.
Thrawn and the others stay aboard this little pirate ship or whatever freighter with the Tabana gas. And they're kind of working on getting the hyperdrive unlocked. And Thrawn is discussing with Signy how he would get the Tabana gas out of that lock that they're in. Signy's like, man, I don't know how to get this stuff out. It's stuck. Oh, darn. And then Thrawn like whips out his buzz droid and he's like, look what I have here.
Yeah,
we can just cut through the hole and then pull the gas out.
Yep.
And then, they kind of go back and forth and Signy gets more of the plan. And once he kind of knows everything, homeboy is sus.
A big reveal.
And
it's a trap.
It's a trap. And so like Signy like does a little like signal or something. And a bunch of pirates pop out.
Oh no! Where did they come from?
One guy, what's his name? Angel. He's like, can I kill him? Can I just shoot him? And Signy's like, nah, bro, I ain't about that. I don't.
Signy has morals.
And so, all of the other Imperials are like, wow, we got played. And Thrawn's just playing it cool. He's like, oh no, I surrender.
Oh no, I've been played.
And so we kind of see that big trap reveal, hostages, and then you kind of see the plan between Signy and Angel, who are not on the same team. They're kind of like mutual parties in this exchange of Tabana gas.
Yeah, they're like working as partners.
Yeah, and Signy's like, I want these people, these Imperials, to not be harmed when you drop them off somewhere. Angel's like, bet, I just want to beat them up. And Signy's like, no accidents.
I want to smash. Yeah, I want to kill him. Let me
kill him. And so, funny enough, he's like, let me sweeten the pot. You see that buzz droid over there? It's a Mark 1. Worth a lot of money. I will give you this as a bonus if you do not harm these people.
Yeah, he drops the Dunium thing. He reveals the Dunium once again. Very important, very valuable.
Yeah. So, Signy and Angel are going to stay together on the stolen ship, and they're going to go zoom off to try and pawn this Tabana gas off. And Thrawn and the other prisoners, the Imperials, they go with the other pirates to their ship. Forgot what it was called. And so they're traveling.
And they get put with the prisoners from the other ship.
Captain Fitz. So they go and they see the captain of the ship that was just stolen. Right? They get thrown in jail, basically.
And he basically does the Obi-Wan. They do the Obi-Wan thing of like, what are you doing here? And he's like, we came to rescue you. And he's like, good job.
Yeah, good job. Like, they are not impressed.
No.
And then, cue back to a couple minutes ago when I was like, Thrawn had this question about, could I fit a comlink into my insignia plate? They're stuck. They're locked in. And Thrawn goes, like, stand back, basically. Clicks a button, and a buzz droid just goes flying through the walls and starts trying to cut the gate, the lock, to get to Thrawn, because he's like the target with his little insignia.
Yeah, which is really weird. It's like, because it's like, oh yeah, the buzz droid is honing in on him. I'm like, so does that mean like once he cuts through, Thrawn's gonna have to be like, all right, go get the name tag.
So buzz droid comes. The pirates are like, what's that noise? They come down. Thrawn takes the lieutenant badge and chucks it at them. So this buzz droid goes flying towards the guards.
Like
By
the
this,
buzz droids like run into the dude. When I was reading this, I was imagining it so comical. Like
yeah,
the dude like gets hit by the name badge and he's like, "Whoa, what's this?" And he's like holding it, and then the buzz droid just like tackles him down. That's how I imagined it.
yeah. And I thought it was funny because like just like you said, this buzz droid just flying at people.
Mm-hmm.
But it did get the gate open before he tossed the badge.
Yes.
So they'll run out, and they knock all those pirates unconscious. And then Captain Fitz is like, quick, the other pirates are going to be here. And then Eli smiles and is like, well, let me tell you, Thrawn has a second buzz droid in our
There's a
they
second one.
basically killed all the other pirates by sucking them into the vacuum space.
Yes.
So
Beautiful.
that's kind of how chapter 8 ends. They take control of the pirate ship and they set coordinates to go rendezvous with the Blood Crow.
Yes. This is like Thrawn's like first Uno reverse card that he plays in this book. It's like an uber Uno reverse card. It's like he went onto that ship knowing that pirates were going to appear.
Yeah. He walked into the trap on purpose.
Yes. Because he's trying to get 2 for 1. Essentially, they now have the pirates and their ship, and then he's gonna go try to get the Tabana gas back, and so he's gonna get 2 for 1. So,
Yeah,
exciting. Chapter 8. Very heavy on the Thrawnness of chapter 8. It's very Thrawn.
Yeah.
I think it's a good chapter to show off like how he operates. And also, Eli knew the whole time, too. Because Eli, obviously probably helped him with the comlink and has been helping him with the buzz droid, so he knows how many Thrawn has. So,
Yeah, Eli's, you're starting to see more of his, learning from Thrawn, right? Kind of
yeah,
learning some of that tactician mindset Thrawn has.
right.
And Thrawn always tests the guy, too. He's constantly like, well, what do you think about this? What would we do in this? Keep him on edge.
Yeah. / teaching him. It's like a Mr. Miyagi type thing of like, oh, you're just painting a fence? Show me paint the fence. And he's like, oh, all of a sudden I can do karate. That's how Eli is. He's like, oh, all of a sudden I can use my brain. And then we get in chapter 9. Thrawn gets in trouble and basically gets exiled down to the planet. He gets put on like mandatory vacation while they investigate, which he's fine with, and he ends up roping in Eli, which Eli's pissed about because he was like, with Thrawn out on the ship, I can show off how good I am. But then it turns out that Thrawn's like, oh well, I might need my translator. And then Captain Rossi's like, yep, Eli, get off my ship too. But it's because Thrawn again had a different plan, and they want to talk to the pirate prisoners before the ISB does. Is it the ISB? I think it's the ISB.
It's ISB now.
And then we get into Thrawn's good cop, bad cop routine. So Thrawn goes in there and he's like doing like typical Imperial investigation stuff. And then the pirates are like obviously like, oh, we're not going to talk to you. And Thrawn's like, that's fine. And he like leaves the room. And the pirates are smart. They're like, oh, we know that the comms are still on, so they can still hear us talking. So they're like, oh, we're going to speak a different language. We're smart. And then they start speaking a specific language that 2 characters that we have met so far can speak. That being Sybisti, and that being Thrawn and Eli Vanto can both speak that language. And so Thrawn's basically just sitting there, like, looking around the room or something, like, oh, I don't know what you're saying, but he's just, like, taking notes, like, here, they're going to go here, and all this other stuff. The pirates try their best. They're like, oh, we're going to give him a dummy location so that he'll go chase them. Thrawn during his initial investigations, like, hey, help me to help you, because Grand Moff Tarkin is going to want to talk to you because you're part of this old crew that Tarkin was obsessed with, and you definitely don't want to mess with Grand Moff Tarkin. And at this point, we have no idea if Thrawn has ever met Tarkin or how Thrawn knows Tarkin. So we're just like, I mean, to be fair, yes, Tarkin is a lot scarier than Thrawn.
Oh, yeah.
Especially if he has a vendetta against you. But then, so they take the deal that Thrawn laid them, and
basically they set them free and gave them a ship.
Yeah, and then it turns out that Thrawn, it was a trap. They're going to follow the pirates. They're going to send somebody off to that planet that they gave up because something is there. And he doesn't actually know Tarkin. He was just bluffing. And it's just like, okay, so he is very smart. This is another one of those chapters where it's just like, okay, so he's just really smart. You know?
Yeah.
I love this chapter. This is one of my favorite ones, just because I like him basically like name dropping Tarkin and like that striking the fear of God into these pirates. Like, oh, Tarkin, don't want to mess with him.
How at the end, the admiral on the base, it's just like, how did you know they were a part of this, old gang? And Thrawn was like, I guessed.
Yeah, I guessed, and it was correct. I had a 50-50 shot, and I guessed right. Like, it was perfect. It's like one of those things where it's like Thrawn just like said something, and then one of the pirates was just like, "Oh yeah," and he was like, "Oh, I was just joking, but okay, yeah. Well, you're under arrest for that."
Busted. You just got busted.
But yeah, so now they're following the. No, do we finish at the end of this chapter?
Yeah, we never see them actually go to the ship.
We never actually see them catch them. But he gets it though, right?
Yeah.
Based on the next chapter. Okay. So yeah, so that's the end of the chapter, is that now we have all of the pieces set up for them to basically pull this off. And then we move on to chapter 10.
In our last chapter for the day, we're back on Coruscant with the
Party time.
It is the week up to Empire Day, which is called Ascendancy Week.
Order 66 Day.
Yo. Best day of the year. And we start with Arinda talking to like her best friend, right?
Mm-hmm.
This random lady she helped out, and then they just like, they clicked.
Right.
And she's like, hey, you coming over to Core Square to the Federal District? And Arinda's like, nah, fam, too expensive. I can't sleep in my car.
She's like sleeping in her car or something, which I'm like, how did this happen? Didn't you have an apartment before?
Like some dude who worked for the senator as well got busted doing spicing in his car, so the senator was like, no more sleeping in the cars. So she was not planning on going to Core Square, and her friend just so happened to say, well,
I have a connection.
I know somebody who has an apartment down there who can hook us up as long as you hook us up with an exclusive party. So Arinda was like, I got you, fam. I can get you into these secret parties. So fast forward to, later that day, we see Arinda, her friend, and the guy who owns the apartment. His name's like Driller or something, something random. Funny story. He got his apartment by his like uncle is some big guy in the Imperial Navy and is going to be gone for 3 months. And he's like, I basically just asked first if I could stay in this place. So, he lucked out, got the apartment. So we see them walking up to this hotel, the Hotel Alessandre. I probably butchered that name. But
it can be whatever you want it to be, man. It's Star Wars in a book.
True. Arinda's like, I want to make some connections, kind of see what's going on. So she starts bebopping around.
She's
And
trying to move up the social ladders. She's like, I have these friends. I now want to become friends with their bosses and that sort of thing.
and she just happens to see, guess who?
Her boss.
Her boss, Senator Renking, and a group of people who look very important. We have Thrawn, along with Ensign Vanto, and the big reveal of the book, not the book, the chapter, our boy almost said Admiral, Colonel Wolf Yularen.
With that mustache.
former Admiral Yularen of the
Yes.
Clone Wars. In case those of you who don't know, he was Anakin's admiral on his Venator, so.
Is he like the director of the ISB? Or is he just a high ranking person?
I think he's just a really high ranking officer.
Hmm.
But so yeah,
high enough ranking to be on the Death Star in the
true.
opening sequence of Star Wars.
R.I.P. Yularen. But so Arenda's like, oh, these people are interesting. I'm going to walk up to them.
Mm-hmm.
And she kind of gets a bit and pieces of the conversation until Ren King finally is like, oh, Arenda, good to see you. Let me introduce you. So she kind of gives him, or he gives her the, this is Yularen, this is Thrawn, this is Vanto. We find out that Thrawn is there because he is being court-martialed for his actions that he took, pissing Rosie off.
But also that he successfully got back the Tabana gas and captured a bunch of pirates.
And saved the crew. So Yularen's like, I am, advocating for him. I want Thrawn to meet as many people as possible. I've got connections. What he did was right.
And he's in trouble.
Yeah, trouble.
He's being punished.
But so that's why Thrawn is on Coruscant. And during that whole exchange, Ren King basically gives Arenda, he's like, I need you to run this errand for me. Here's this little data disk. Can you go give it to Moff? What's his name? Moff Gotti. And Arenda's like, oh yeah, no big deal. I've done that before plenty of times. I've been to the guy's office before. Sure. So they all walk away. Yularen takes Thrawn off to go meet other senators. And Arenda tells her friends, I'll be right back. I got to go run this errand really quick.
Mm-hmm.
So she looks around, finds Moff Gotti, and he's like, oh yeah, my personal data pad. Come upstairs with me. So she follows him up into this really fancy, bougie hotel room. And he's just acting weird. He keeps saying all these things like, oh, I'm glad it was you that Ren King sent. Good to see you. I've seen you around. And Arenda is clueless, right? She has no idea anything's off. Until he comes back out with the little disc that Ren King had told her to give to him.
Mm-hmm.
And then she grabs it, and as she's looking at it, she says in her head, like, something is off.
Yeah.
This disc is not the same one that I gave the guy. And then, you see Gotti's like, so you noticed. It's like the most cheesiest thing ever. I wish you hadn't seen that kind of thing. And, he just like, quick attack, just throws like this high-grade spice on her. And spice is basically like Star Wars version of what? Cocaine?
Essentially, yeah.
So she is covered in this illegal substance now. And he's like, you're busted. If I call the cops right now, you're screwed. So
like you're going to prison for life. Yeah. He's like, call an ambulance, but not for me.
Yeah. So he's like, I know what Ren King was trying to do. Return this fake disc back to him, or else you're going to jail.
Yeah.
So Arenda's like panicking. She's like, well, what do I do? My favorite line is, where is it?
But that's how it ends. I mean, it ends on a cliffhanger.
Somewhere, I could have swore somewhere she was like, "Well, this is politics," something like that.
I think
I
you're
think that's
going ahead, Robert.
oh, busted. Ignore
The
me.
the last line of this
Edit,
chapter
edit this out. Edit this out.
is, "And you, my dear, have enough of it on you to guarantee that you spend the rest of your life in prison." That's all
Bum,
we
bum,
know,
bum.
Robert. It ends on a cliffhanger.
Yes.
You're trying to spoil next week.
Damn. I got busted.
That's embarrassing. That's really embarrassing.
But what's next?
But it finally, but for me, like it finally, like I feel like her stuff finally gets exciting.
Yeah, she's doing something now.
Because so far, she's just been like talking to people and like kind of moving up her own corporate ladder. And like now it's like Moff Gaudi's up to something. Senator Ranking is up to something. You know, because they're having an exchange. We got to see Yularen.
The political drama.
Right. So. And she's covered in spice now. That's always fun, you know? So. Alright, I wrote down 2 questions for this week's episode to kind of close it all up. You ready? Favorite part so far in the overall story?
I really like the Emperor scene.
Yeah, in chapter 2
Where
or whatever.
Thrawn is like playing his hand, trying to like, this guy just has nerves of steel to be talking to Palpatine like that.
Right, because we know
Just like,
Palpatine is, crazy.
yeah, and it's just like, man, this guy is just going at it.
Mm-hmm.
I respect Ethan.
I think for me, my favorite part is probably, it's probably this chapter, either chapter 8 or chapter 9 of this so far, where it's just like Thrawn being who we end up finding out. Like, this is how Thrawn is. Like, very tactical, very much like constantly pulling out Uno reverse cards of being like, oh, you thought you were a step ahead of me, well, too bad, and like that sort of thing. I love that aspect of Thrawn.
I will say, what I do like about this book is all of the subtle things that come back later.
Yes.
Right? Like the insignia. One thing that Yularen said in chapter 10 is he said, if you do get kicked out of the Navy, I would love to see you at the ISB. I think you would look good in white.
Yeah.
And it's like...
It's on the cover of the book. He's wearing white.
Little foreshadowing, but little things like that makes the book really fun.
Yeah. And then my second question is, what are you looking forward to for next week of all the storylines that are going on so far? Arinda's is really the only one that is like, we have to go somewhere. Thrawn and Eli, it's kind of like, okay, well, he's going to get punished, something. I think they actually said that technically, I think he has a promotion already. He's now Senior Lieutenant Thrawn, not just Lieutenant Thrawn. So he's already been promoted.
I want to see how the whole Signy situation resolves, because we kind of left that on a cliffhanger where the pirates flew off, and then chapter 10's like, oh, Thrawn's here in trouble. So what happened in between that?
Right. And is Signy like an important character?
Yeah.
Through the rest of the book, because usually they don't name drop people for no reason. Like we don't, like we learned who Signy was for a reason.
Yeah.
And that he technically outsmarted Thrawn, which is setting up some sort of clash later. You know it's going to come because he outsmarted Thrawn.
Yeah. And in the in chapter 10, they mentioned that 12 of the Tabana gas canisters were gone.
Yeah.
and they're like, oh, they used Thrawn's plan against him. And then Yularen was like, no, actually, he didn't cut through the hole. And the whole of the ship, should I say. And Eli said, like, Eli had a line where he was like, he looked at Thrawn and could see Thrawn was like, what? Thinking about it.
Yeah. So
Interesting.
I am excited though to see what happens with Rinda.
Yeah.
I just like the drama. It's like I don't like talking about people, but I will sit there and listen to the tea being spilled about things. I don't like drama, but I enjoy the drama of entertainment.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, so that was chapters 6 through 10. Next time we're gonna do 7 through not 7. 11 through 15.
Yep.
So we'll see how we pick off from there. So any closing thoughts?
It's getting good. It's actually getting,
pretty much all of these chapters had something going on. We're done introducing people
more and more, which I like. You start to see more of the character development now, where their trajectories are going to. So it sets up interesting arcs.
Right. So, all right. Well, with that comes the conclusion of another perfect episode.
Of course.
Mm-hmm. Thanks to everybody that watched the first one. We look forward to
on with it.
Yeah.
We'll get better and better.
Yeah.
I promise you.
We get better with age. And then we're eventually going to get it put on, actual podcasting platforms for all the people that want to watch while they drive to work or listen while they drive to work. So we'll get there. So thanks for going on this journey with us. And yeah, still don't have a closing thing.